James Sykes, CEO, President Director of Baselode Energy, here for our first update in April. All right, it's already April. In Saskatchewan, we don't have much of a spring out here. It's basically 2 weeks, then we're into summer. Assays is still pending, 29% of what we've submitted. There's been no change since last week, so we've basically gone almost 2 weeks without having any assays. So the email's gone to the lab just saying, where are our assays? Because this is ridiculous that we're waiting on 27, 29 weeks for these remaining samples. In the interim, we're going to keep focusing on this clay alteration area. We're 5 kilometers south of ACKIO, so perfect kind of place to build up a jurisdiction with a new discovery. We're also within 5 kilometers of the current day Athabasca Basin edge, so we can believe that the Athabasca Basin would have covered this area if you need the sandstone fluids. So we're in the right area, good area, massive clay alteration, can't get enough of it. And we keep highlighting this because it's very important. And when I was talking to Cameron just the other day, I asked him, what haven't we covered with this area? What haven't we seen? And he said, just that massive clay alteration is the story. You don't see that everywhere. That's something that doesn't occur. The fact that you can pick up rock, like pick up the core and bend it, and you can crush it between your hands, that indicates that you've had such a high concentration of fluids coming through this area that has turned everything from a rock and crystalline into this mess, into this clay alteration mess. The fluid movement's incredible. So that on this cross section, that area in blue, that's the clay alteration area. It's about 100 meters wide and at least 200 meters down dip that we've identified so far, and we believe that it goes deeper. Within that clay alteration, we are seeing the right illite. And what I mean by that is the clay speciation that we've identified that with the peak spectral wavelength that is synonymous with other illites that I've seen on other deposits. We're seeing that type of illite within this clay alteration area, and it looks like it's increasing with depth, and it looks like it's getting stronger. We'll see a little area of it up on top, which could be indicative that paleo weathering profile used to be up there, but that's a different story. The lead isotopes, the lead isotope fingerprint that is left behind, the most anomalous, or again, right within that clay alteration area. What is that telling us? It's to get the lead isotope ratios that we're seeing, we should be seeing more uranium in the drill core, but there's not enough uranium there for those lead isotopes to make sense, indicating that uranium probably was there to create those lead isotopes, but then it's been flushed, it's been moved. And we believe these things are like roll fronts as well. So we know with the clay that this is a massive plumbing system. And it's not hard to conceive that this system has just rushed through here and moved things along. Smack dab in the middle of this whole thing is that fracture with the hydrothermal heavy rare earths, synonymous with other Athabasca high-grade uranium deposits. So there's a lot of things that just keep indicating that we believe uranium has been migrated down the structural system. We just have to drill deeper at depth. You can see some of our previous videos that touch on these topics on YouTube via the Ore Group channel. This video is going to concentrate on boron. A lot of people know it as dravite. It's a boron-rich clay in the Athabasca, but I'm going to use boron as both boron and dravite. Why boron? Why do we really care? Boron's number 5 on the periodic table of elements. Uranium's number 92. They're both high charge elements, but they're both incompatible elements, and that I think is the key, because quite often, in the fact that they're incompatible elements and they're both fluid mobile. So when you've got a hydrothermal fluid system and fault controlled hydrothermal fluids, and the fluids are interacting with the rocks, if there's boron within those minerals, it's going to want to just liberate itself and make the minerals break down. So the boron will migrate into the water very quickly and very preferentially rather than stay on the rock. And uranium is the same way. So we can use the two as these proxies. We can use boron as a proxy for finding the right type of fluids that would carry uranium, but it doesn't guarantee that we would find uranium. We quite often do find the two together. We find dravite and uranium associated with each other in these massive basement hosted deposits, such as Arrow and such as MacArthur River. But it doesn't mean that if you find boron, you will find uranium. I've seen I've seen plenty of boron anomalies that have had no uranium, and I've seen uranium deposits with no boron. But again, it's not hard to conceive that the two are together. At Arrow, this is from 2014, back in the initial days, we identified a dravite halo around the mineralization, basically indicating that if you tag this halo, you're expecting to find dravite. Doesn't mean super high concentrations, but that's where you're going to find it. And again, it mantles the uranium anomaly. If you look at something like the sandstone overlying Millennium deposit right there in the red ellipses, uranium on the upper scale, boron on the lower image. Uranium halos pretty significant, especially the one directly over mineralization. That's why we find uranium as a use uranium as a pathfinder in the sandstone. Works beautifully. Boron, maybe not so much. The chimneys kind of look off. So is it really a pathfinder? Well, we can also see things at scale, at tighter scale. So with uranium, there's a strong uranium kick right above the unconformity, right above the mineralization. Same with the boron. So maybe we're not looking for these multi-kilometer scales, and maybe we need to focus on something that's a little bit more tighter, tens to hundreds of meters of boron concentrations. And so to really push that idea is we're going to take we're going to start off with a relatively high anomalous number of boron, to anything greater than 200 parts per million boron. We're going to consider that to be anomalous for our example. And we're going to throw it on hook. So anything over 200 parts per million boron is anomalous. And we're looking not just for one sample or 5 meters or things like that. We're looking for tens to hundreds of meters as best as possible. Yes, there is a boron and uranium synergy. Again, they're not one to one. You can find uranium without boron quite often in ACKIO, but you can also find boron without uranium at ACKIO, and you can find them both together. But it's just this idea that you've had the right fluid conditions that could liberate boron, then you probably had the right fluid conditions that could liberate uranium as well in this structure. So that's why I think boron is one of these things that you should pay attention to, but it's not the be all and end all. When we drilled Beckett back in 2021, there's no boron down there. Same with the VTIM in 2022. Exploration hole 2023, there's no boron in there. When we see up in the tab area, holes 9 and 10 that we drilled last summer, we're seeing boron over thick accumulations within that area, especially within the alteration that we've seen up there. We like this tab area. We think it's very encouraging. And seeing this boron anomalisms up there also really indicate that as well. About a kilometer and a half south of ACKIO, where we drilled holes 13 and 14, both of those holes tagged an oxidized quartz hematite rich structure with some later overprinting clay alteration. It's a very beautiful structure. And the both of those drill holes have boron anomalies that mantle that structure. So again, we're seeing the right type of structures, and we're seeing boron with these. So are we seeing the right fluid conditions that can move uranium along this structural corridor? A little bit further to the south of that, 3 holes, no boron in there. So it's not like you're going to find boron everywhere. The tab area, or sorry, the clay alteration area that we're in love with and that we're talking about right now, of course, holes 16, 17 that we do have results for. We expected boron, and lo and behold, there's boron in there too. Hole 18, which is a little bit south of this area, no boron in there, and it was still pretty altered. Holes 19, 20, and with the rest of the clay alteration area are still pending. So let's see where it plots up. I bet you wouldn't be surprised if you found that in holes 16 and 17, we're still pending 21, that the boron plots up right here, right in the clay alteration area. Consistent thickness of over 200 parts per million boron. We can just do a very simple um, interpretation like this, slap it onto our summary, and it just overprints everything. Well, not overprints, but it just jives with everything we're seeing. The rhyolite, the visual massive clay, the lead isotope fingerprint, the hydrothermal heavy rare earths, and now anomalous boron, all within this area. This is it's too exciting not to pass up, and we believe the target is at depth. $5 million for exploration. We're ready for this. Weeks away from drilling. We're in April. We are in April. We're looking to get camp going by May, get the drills up by May, start drilling by June. That's weeks away. 8 to 10 weeks, bang on. That's the target we're going for. That's what we're excited about. That looks right. It needs to be drilled, and for our next drill hole, it needs to be in there. That's where baseload needs to go. We don't know the specifics yet because we're still waiting on the last three holes in this area to really firm up the final vector that we need to just kind of focus. Because as you can see, there's a lot of overlapping synergies here. We want to see where those things all point and if they all stay together. So we need the rest of these results. And the lab deficiencies are not helping us with this. Thanks for watching. I think it's exciting. Baselode Energy, part of the OR group of companies, very, very successful group of companies. I've definitely made forward-looking statements, and I'll end with one. But everything that we've seen in this alteration system, in this clay alteration area, just screams high-grade uranium. And with that 5 million in weeks away, this is a very exciting time for baseload shareholders. And I can't wait to see any drill hole results out of that area. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. You can contact us. And there we go.